This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So you were talking earlier, Sean, about how there's an increased demand for electricity in the coming years as we move to carbon neutral footprint here in California, but there's already not enough like generation in the state. We're already having to import energy to meet our current demand. What does that look like with like the rise of like AI and just an increased energy consumption in general? Like how are we going to have brownouts? Are we going to have days where we just don't have electricity? Like, I need a house battery? Like, what does this look like?
Well, let me consult my crystal ball, and I'll be able to tell you, right? So
Sure.
we're living in a crazy age, right? So to think about how pervasive an effect artificial intelligence has already had in just 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Then think about the next 10 years, what's going to be possible. So, for your listeners, I would encourage them to Google this. The big companies out there, Meta, Google, Facebook, Google, Meta is Facebook, Amazon, many others. Microsoft. They are actually either rehabbing. I can't remember the name of the nuclear power plant that went offline within a year, and then one of these big companies said, "Okay, well, listen, we want to start it back up again," and they got approval to do so. And then Facebook and Meta and Microsoft are looking at small-scale nuclear production to benefit the AI that they want to bring on board. So, if you really pay attention to what's going on in this country, many believe that artificial intelligence, AI, because of the computing power and the storage power, and then you got to keep those. I've been to a data center before. I don't know if you ever have, but innocuous building you wouldn't look twice at, but it's got millions, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of computers in there, and they got to keep it really cold because that stuff gets hot.
Yep.
So it's really expensive to power that. So many people are suggesting that the biggest demand that we've ever seen for energy is coming through and will come through AI, and it's just a matter of time when that takes effect. So
more than houses, more than cars,
more than houses, more than cars.
What about manufacturing? With Trump trying to bring all the manufacturing back?
Well, yeah, it's just going to compound the problem.
Okay.
So we're already in a shortage of available, efficient, cheap energy, specifically in California. Okay, many other parts of the country not as much of a problem, but in California we are, right? And so I think that this is just a doubling down of the problem. This plays into what we talked about before. There is no way in my mind that I see some sort of big event coming down the line that's all of a sudden going to make people's $400 utility bill a $100 utility bill. I just don't see any variation of that whatsoever. What I see coming is more of the same, which most people have seen their utility bill double in the last 5 years.
So you think solar is a safe bet as far as get it now, you're just going to wish you'd gotten it sooner type of a thing?
I think it's going to be one of those things that is only going to increase in cost down the line. I don't think solar is going to all of a sudden get cheaper than it is today. But I think the benefit of solar is when you can make your energy at the house, when you can get rates that are locked in that won't increase in cost like PG&E has. So PG&E, 6 rate increases last year, 32%, right? Would you rather have that, okay, and that could happen this year. It could happen next year. It could be worse next year.
Yeah.
Who knows? Right? But would you rather have that, or would you rather have a contract that allows you 1 rate increase a year that you know what it's going to be and it's never more than 3.5%? 3.5% is manageable. 30% a year is not.
Yeah, I choose option B.
Option B. And we've got several programs that are like that. I'm just saying if you can make your own energy from sunlight, that's going to be cheaper for most people than whatever they're getting from the utility.
So one concern someone might have as a homeowner, obviously they see this idea of, okay, I can generate my own power. I don't have to depend on some big corporation like PG&E raising my rates by 30%. This sounds great. But isn't solar dependent on good weather? What do I do when the weather's not so great out, like during the winter? How do I produce enough energy to power my home and my electric vehicle?
Yeah, great question. And that question is really, really appropriate, specifically to like off-grid systems. Like if let's say you had a property up in the mountains that had no PG&E access or no Edison or whatever. Mm-hmm. the only option you have is solar. Those systems end up being much more significant in size and cost because the only option you have is generating energy from solar. In other words, if you run out of power, you got nothing else. So with solar today, it's grid-tied systems, okay, which means that you still have a connection to PG&E or whatever utility you have. So you source a majority of your energy from solar. Doesn't mean that you're going to source all of it from solar. The example I like to give is let's say either one of you two gentlemen had a marriage in the family or a death in the family. Mm-hmm. You have a solar system, but all of a sudden you get 5 family members come stay with you for a week that you wouldn't normally have. You're going to use a lot more energy that week than you normally would, right? So it's good to be able to have the option of being able to source that from the utility. So I liken it to the difference between a checking account and a savings account. The solar is going to be the checking account, the normal debits and withdrawals, and then the savings account or whatever is going to be whatever you need to pull from the utility if you have an event or if it's seasonal. The worst season for solar is winter. The sun's out half as much time and it's lower in the southern sky. So it's just not going to produce. Most solar systems are going to underproduce for what most people generate or consume, most people consume in wintertime, okay? But that's just how they work. It doesn't mean that they're not beneficial, okay? So I liken it this way. The objective before the big solar change happened. So there's big solar change in California in 2023, right? So that change dropped the amount of crediting rate that you get for the excess energy that your system sends to the grid. So on a bright, sunshiny day, solar makes power, right? It makes energy. And I don't have a button that allows me to turbo it and make it make more energy, nor do we have a brake, right? It's just going to make power. So that excess energy gets sent to the utility, and then they give you some sort of compensation for that. That compensation now has been substantially reduced, which is why you want to have batteries, okay? If I store it in my battery, there's no reduction. If I give it to PG&E, they keep 75% of it, okay? So point of this is simple. My objective before this big change, when you used to get a 1-to-1 credit on the solar energy, was always to eliminate somebody's PG&E bill. It was easy to do. You just had to have a solar system that made more energy than what the homeowner consumed in a year.
Right.
And
it's simple to do.
If you overproduced, you were getting a credit.
You got a credit, you got to store that. That's why people had a true-up year. PG&E didn't want to trade money with people every day, or every month. Okay, oh, I owe you $50. Oh, you owe me $60 or whatever. They just didn't want to do that. So they looked at the totality of a year. But point being is that with solar now, the objective used to be mitigating completely the utility bill. I tell people all the time, the objective with solar today is not eliminating 100% of your exposure to PG&E, but it's making the biggest dent that you can make in PG&E's cost for you as a homeowner without overbuilding a system where indirectly they become the major benefactor. Because I've seen people, let's throw on more panels. Next thing you know, they got this massive system that mostly benefits PG&E because once the batteries are charged up, all that surplus energy is being sent to them and they keep 75% of it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't just because solar today may not cover 100% of somebody's PG&E exposure doesn't mean that it's not significantly more beneficial than just staying with PG&E.
How much energy is stored in those batteries?
Depends on the batteries, but effectively, in today's, for example, a Tesla Powerwall, which most people recognize the name of, 13,500 watts of energy can be stored in those in one Tesla Powerwall. So for context, let's say it's a spring evening. I don't want to account for a heat source or air conditioning yet. But let's say it's spring, 1 o'clock in the morning, your family's asleep, you're asleep, you got a refrigerator going, freezer, internet, security, few lights on. Let's say you're using 1,000 watts of energy an hour. That'd be high, but you're talking about 13 hours of stored energy in that battery. If you're only using 500 watts of energy an hour, then you're talking about 26 hours, right? But you fast forward to summer, most AC compressor units, 4-ton, 3-ton, 5-ton, whatever, 2,500 to 3,000 watts of energy an hour.
Wow.
So, that might only be 4 or 5 hours of continuous runtime on an AC unit in that case. But the good news about summer is that you're only bridging 8 hours of darkness, right?
Yeah.
Versus in winter, you're bridging 16 hours.
But now I'm thinking, now you got me freaked out about utility bills. Normally people are okay, the summer, you got the pool pump going, you got keep the house cool. Now I'm worried about what an all-electric house utility bill would look like.
Oh, yeah.
Even because now you're generating less power to offset the cost of the electricity.
I see it every day. I see it all the time. We deal with homeowner after homeowner that is, let's say, aged, retired, older, Okay, and some of these people don't realize that the smallest little energy vampire that exists today is those dish space heaters, right? So some people supplement by having those dish heaters around their house or sit in front of one or whatever, and they don't realize how much energy. And all we got to do is we'll call PG&E and we'll look at their utility bill, and you'll see a big spike in winter. That's the hardest problem to deal with in solar because winter's the worst season for solar.
Yeah.
Right.
So make hay while the sun's shining type of a thing.
Yeah, make hay while the sun's shining. You got it.
And then wait it out through the winter. But so at the end of the day, solar's still a good idea.
Yes.
What are some of these programs? Because you said there's a number of programs where obviously people can go out and finance them, or they can buy the systems outright. Yeah. But if somebody wants to get involved in solar at a no or low cost option, what does that look like?
I think that one of the best programs, so and I just recently talked about it. I'm glad you asked this question because I want to be very candid. I used to rail against these power purchase programs about 2.5, 3 years ago. Okay. Used to say, stay away from them, nothing good. You know, if you own your house, own your roof, own your power kind of thing. I was a big advocate after 22 years of being a financial advisor, a big advocate for owning the system. But keep in mind, 2.5 years ago, we had rates at 0.99%. I mean, it was easy to finance something if you wanted to. We didn't have inflation has been, or let me say it differently, solar has been on the front lines of inflation. You got a lot of metals, a lot of componentry that's affected by inflation. So in the last 2.5 years, the cost of solar has gone up, and then financing has just become super expensive. Solar is a high-risk financed asset for companies that lend against it. Not for the reason you would think. It's not normally because of the credit borrower, defaulting per se, but it's the fact that as soon as they install that system, they're underwater by probably 50% because half the cost of solar is labor, right? You never recover that. So if somebody doesn't pay you, now you got to try to take back your used solar equipment. Could I talk you into somebody else's 3-year-old panels that they didn't defaulted on the loan and now company took back, or would you rather have new ones? Right. Yep, so the risk is that you don't have any significant collateral. So real rates of solar financing right now, beyond mortgage rates. What are mortgage rates right now? 6.5?
Yeah, mid-6s, depending on what you're doing. Yeah.
So best you can do in solar, maybe is 8. Realistically, closer to 10. So that's where really the advantage of, I think, power purchase programs play today is that power purchase programs are simply outlined this way. Instead of buying a system, instead of financing a system, instead of leasing a system, just buy the power that solar creates from somebody else that owns it. It's called a TPO, third-party owner program. Okay, you don't own it, so you're not responsible for insuring it. You're not responsible for maintaining it. You're not responsible for monitoring it. The warranties. So, for example, with the warranties with batteries are critical to the solar equation today, right? Tesla's manufactured warranty on a Tesla Powerwall 3 is 10 years. Okay, life expectancy, I hope you get 15 out of it. Enphase, which I think is the best battery available in solar right now, they have a 15-year warranty on their batteries with a life expectancy of probably 20. There isn't a battery out there today, made today, that's expected to last 25 years. But with a power purchase program, the length of those programs are a 25-year power purchase program, and they'll cover all of the componentry for that 25 years. Including the batteries.
Oh, wow.
So I say to people that buy a system, buy solar, pay cash for it, I said, listen, you need to have a sinking fund or plan to have some sort of money available to replace the batteries at some point because they won't last 25 years, right?
Yeah.
But with a power purchase program, they insure it, monitor it. So let's talk about those two things, okay? And then we'll talk about the battery replacement. If I insure something, is the cost of insurance over the next 25 years likely to increase?
Absolutely.
How about the cost of human capital over the next 25 years? Monitoring, sending crews out there,
Most
probably.
definitely, yeah.
And then the solar componentry is going to wear out eventually. It's going to need to be replaced. So that's why these programs have a 3.5% escalator, is they have to account for insurance, human capital, and replacement issues, okay? But everything else is covered by the program. So if you can have a third-party owner system, if you can have a solar system installed at your property, roof or ground mount, give you 2 to 6 batteries along with it, And then all you have to do is buy the energy that the system produces, like you do from PG&E, but the cost of it is meaningfully cheaper. I shared with you earlier in the last segment that PG&E right now, Tier 1 rates are 43 cents a kilowatt hour. Tier 2 are 62 cents a kilowatt hour. Many of these power purchase programs, depending on how much energy you use, let me qualify this because somebody just checked me on this yesterday, and I'm very specific about what I say. Okay?
I can tell, yeah.
Very specific. It is size dependent. Most of our clients are seeing their utility bill cut in half for a system that they don't have to buy and a loan that they didn't have to get and a check they didn't have to write. Okay. But that's for somebody that uses at least 11.6. So the average house's consumption in California, 12,000 kilowatt hours. I can't cut somebody's 4,000 kilowatt hour bill in half. Okay.
Got it.
So in other words, the lower the usage, the more challenging it is to cut it in half. The higher the usage, we can actually get under 50%. But so in summary, to be able to benefit from solar, to be able to mitigate the cost, to be able to not write a check now, because somebody asked me the other day, is it always best to pay cash for solar? And I thought about it, given my 22-year background as a fiduciary financial advisor, and I thought about it and I said, no, it's not always best. And they said, well, why would you say that? I said, well, if I was an astute investor and had capital that I was going to spend on solar, could I think of another place over the next 10 years where I might be able to get better than a break-even return? Because if you write a check for solar, realistically, 7 to 10 years is about your cost recovery. Let's err against the homeowners. Let's say it takes 10 years. So I'm at 10 years to get my capital back. Okay,
You're break even.
Break even in 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, if I took that same capital and put it into what we just talked about, AI, let's say, okay, is it likely over the next 10 years I might be a little better than just getting my money back out of that investment? Mm-hmm. Okay. And if that snowball rolling downhill is compounding, I can take the savings from the power purchase program, cut my bill in half, add it to that AI kitty, fast forward 10, 15, 20, 25 years, which bag is going to be bigger? The savings just because I paid cash for solar, or the bag of the investment that I took that money and instead put it someplace else? So that was the qualifier.
Can you see?
Go ahead, Matt.
Can you see companies like PG&E getting into the solar industry?
Well, you might be surprised that two of the largest solar farm originators in our local area are SMUD and PG&E. They're already in it. They like solar. They just don't want you to have it. They want to generate it so they can charge you for the free sunlight that they get. They love solar. They generate solar. California is the most solar adopted state in the country, and many of the utilities have solar farms and or benefit from it. They just don't.
PG&E don't offer it to homeowners, to residents.
Well, they offer
it from
program.
their own grids, but
yes.
not from you personally
Correct.
producing it.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That is interesting. That's a good question.
Yeah, great question.
The thing I like about what you're describing right here, though, is because so many times I go into a homeowner's house and they tell me, hey, I just had solar installed last year. It cost me $30,000, $40,000. So the house is worth this, but now we're going to have to increase it by $30,000 to $40,000 because, in their mind, that's an improvement, and you should get a dollar for dollar return on that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes life takes a crazy turn. They weren't planning on moving; they thought they were going to be there for a while, and they were going to, in 10 years, break even, and then 11, 12 years see a return on that initial investment. With this power purchase agreement, day one you start saving money.
Yes.
Yeah. There's no risk.
You don't have to wait 7 to 10 years. It's one of the easiest. So I used to rail against them because they were difficult to transfer to a new homeowner.
Yeah.
Okay. So the two most difficult contracts to transfer to a new homeowner today are a financed agreement and a lease agreement. Okay.
So power purchase has gotten easier.
They have.
Okay.
Yeah. So finance and lease, you got to get somebody to fall in love with your house and then fall in love with your solar debt.
Yep.
Which people don't want to do. They'll negotiate with you and say to pay it off. Is what they want. But when you can do a soft credit inquiry, not even a hard inquiry, to take over the program, much the same way that you would call PG&E. When you sign up for new service at a new house that you just bought, do you not have to give them your social?
Yeah.
You got to give them your name, your address. You got to give them date of birth. You got to give them your social. You got to give them all the details. Same parameter with the power purchase programs. Okay, today. So it's much easier now to transfer those. So right now, today, I think they're the best game going because most people are, 2.5, 3 years into inflation, may not have the cash they used to. We got tariff fears. We got economic concerns. We got high interest rates because loans haven't come down at all in cost. And so to me, when you can benefit from solar without having to be the guy that either gets a loan and has indebtedness on your credit report, now it affects your debt to income ratio, but you can still benefit without that and you don't have to write a check for it. Who wouldn't want to maybe do that? And that's one of the reasons why I would encourage somebody to text solar to 84503 if you're interested.
Solar to 84503.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, hey, this has been freaking phenomenal. I enjoy having you on the show every single time. I think this is our second or third time back.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening and what's the number one question you get? Like, what's the number one thing holding somebody back from texting you or moving forward with solar? What's that number one thing?
Yeah, I think I don't think that there's one thing, but I'd say that there's several different things. Some people think that when I talk about what I just talked about, it's too good to be true. Okay, and I think that let's just it's not too good to be true, because it takes these companies about 10 to 13 years to recover their capital and what they charge you to buy the energy. So think of it this way: if you and I went into business and we financed or installed a solar system at our cost for some homeowner, okay? First thing we're going to be looking to do is recover our capital, okay? So I want to do that in as little time as possible, so 10 to 12 years. And then we're probably going to have to replace their battery somewhere in between 15 and 20 years.
Yep. So
I've got maybe a 10-year window here of profitability, okay? So it's not too good to be true. It's just an emblematic situation that when somebody can still profit from giving you a solar system and charging you half as much as PG&E, the focus should be PG&E's the problem. The expense is outrageous. California is outrageous, okay? So some people think it's too good to be true, so I wanted to address that. I think the secondary issue is, people have heard so much mixed feelings on solar. They might have had a friend, hey, I know this guy Jim, and he had like this $3,000 true up, so I don't think solar works.
Yeah.
A $3,000 true up in solar isn't an example of solar not working. It's an example of solar needing to be specific in size. What size shoe do you wear, Johnny?
18.
You wear 18?
No, I don't. I'm like an 11.
Okay, could we take your 11 foot and stuff it into a size 7 shoe?
Not comfortably.
No. You can't take a solar system that's supposed to generate 10,000 kilowatt hours of energy and make it generate 18,000 kilowatt hours of energy because some new buyer bought the house. The older clients use less energy. They were more frugal than the new family does, right? So there's no moving parts. Okay, there's no gears to grind, fluid to change, none of that stuff. It doesn't break often. It can, but it doesn't break often. So to me, solar is a proven technology, been around for like 40 years. And the idea is that it's far more beneficial to generate electricity from sunlight than it is from the dirty grid utility company and using their resources.
Well, I also like about the power purchase agreement that they monitor it as well. Because I've heard horror stories of people buying solar houses with solar on them, and some of the panels aren't working, or the inverter's not working at all. Now there's at least somebody monitoring. There's some accountability there to make sure that this agreement you signed up for is taking place.
You brought in something that I think is a really good point to this. Accountability from the perspective of most power purchase programs have some sort of minimum production guarantee. Let's say Matt was a skeptic and he says, "Hey, I'm buying this amount of energy. What's to say that it doesn't generate half of what they said it was?"
Yep.
Okay. So now I'm paying twice as much for half as good, right?
Yep.
Well, the production guarantee basically states that 90%, let's use that number, it's close enough. Some are 87, some are 90. But the company is obligated to pay you a refund if they don't generate 90% of what was stated on the production generation that it was supposed to generate per year.
Wow.
Okay? So they're not going to Matt's former point, they're not going to insure you against all weather risk. Some winters are more inclement, more seasonal, more wet, more storms come through than others, and you're probably not going to generate the same amount of energy every single year in every single winter season. So they're not going to insure you against all that. But this brings to point this thing here, that power purchase programs, because of the production guarantee that they have, it does not suit them, and it actually bites them big if they don't install some of the best equipment on that house. So for example, you mentioned an inverter problem. In solar, there's two different types of inverters. String inverter, which strings all the panels together, which kind of works like a Christmas tree light string.
Okay.
Each panel is like a light, right? What's the one major problem with Christmas tree lights?
If one light's out, the whole thing dies.
You got it.
Yeah.
So string inverters have that weakness. That's not the same with micro. Micro inverters are on the back side of each one of the panels. There's no main inverter that's a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 cost. So each panel has its own small micro inverter. It's more dependable. It's more reliable. You don't have the ability to lose multiple panels because of one inverter issue. Okay.
Yep.
So these power purchase programs, it does not suit them to install a crappy panel that degrades quick, does not suit them to install a string inverter that then breaks and they got 10 panels that go out, does not suit them to have poor battery technology because they can't store the energy. So effectively, they got to get the good stuff out there because they don't want it to work against them because of that production guarantee. And that's an important thing to remember.
That is huge. I didn't realize they did that, but I liked when you said that they are monitoring it. I'm like, okay, that's worth its weight right there.
Well, if you contrast that against like a cash-owned system, if I buy a system for cash, who's responsible for monitoring?
You are the homeowner.
Who's responsible for maintenance?
The homeowner.
All those, and so.
And do you even know how to check the inverter? How do you even know if it's producing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, how people just get busy doing life. They don't realize something failed or had an issue or whatever. And to that end, I think that professional monitoring, to your point, is they're on it because they have a meter running. As soon as that system goes down, if there's some sort of an issue with it, they've got a clock now ticking against them that they're going to have to refund that homeowner whatever the difference is that they didn't produce, right? So that's why they professionally monitor it.
Yeah, I can see why you're a fan of these programs now. They have changed. It's kind of similar to reverse mortgages. They had a horrible name in the 90s, and now it's like it's a really a beneficial tool for people who are looking to retire or looking to turn their home into a cash machine for them. So things change. Just because it was bad doesn't mean it's bad today.
I think that's the biggest thing that I wrestle with is I talk to homeowners every single day that looked at solar 3 years ago. You know, that's like somebody coming up to you, Johnny, and saying, well, I should be able to, you know, this is the best housing market ever, and I should be able to get a loan at like 3%, right?
Yeah.
That was 3 years ago.
I wish. Yeah.
You know, but so I call it the solar coaster.
I love
It's
that.
so frequent and so, I mean, it's up, it's down, it's sideways, it loops you up and down, makes you want to vomit. I mean, that's the solar coaster that I'm on, right? So the only constant has changed. When somebody tells me they looked at solar as little as 6 months ago, I'm saying it's different now. Like last time we talked 6 months ago, I had one program where, you know, I said, hey, here's these third-party ownership type programs. Now I've got three. I got three different programs. You want roof mount, ground mount, you know, batteries, backup. I got all the options.
Man, the batteries are coming hard too. Like there's so many houses I walk into now where I'm seeing these Tesla batteries, whereas a year, 18 months ago, it was a rarity to see a Tesla battery.
Yeah, well, ever since the 2023 change in solar systems, so older folks don't need batteries because the utility looks and acts like them. So if somebody's listening, if you have a true up with the utility, if you have a true up, you have a NEM 2 system, you don't need a battery. You know, because the utility stores the energy for you like a battery. Okay, new solar customers do. So the longer that solar adoption occurs after 2023, the more battery storage you're going to see. And then I think there's also the redundancy of being able to generate your own power on an outage. Back to your original question, right? You said something about, are we going to see rolling blackouts? I don't see how we meet the demand that's coming reasonably. I've speculated that you could instead of rolling blackouts, which are timed infrequently, I could see scheduled blackouts. I could see in your area on the second Tuesday of every month between, you know, Monday from 4 to 9, you're not going to have power.
And just plan on it. It's like trash day. Hey, Tuesday, you make sure the trash is out.
How else is it going to work when they're building more houses, buying more electric cars, when we can't even meet the demand that we have now in this state, right? And they're stepping on the gas of making more demand, significantly more demand.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's coming, but I could speculate that could be possible. I could see scheduled blackouts being something that would be easier to deal with than blindsided blackouts.
Well,
right?
I just have so many questions. I have questions about generators. I have questions about batteries. But we're just going to have you back at a later time.
You will.
But
yeah.
one more time. What's the best way for somebody to reach out to you?
Reach out to us directly. All you got to do is text SOLAR, SOLAR, to 84503. We have a short text code. So if somebody wants to reach out to us directly, communicate with us. We're really knowledge first, information first. We're not high pressure. I'm not going to call you 80 times. We just don't work that way, right? So whoever's listening, don't think that, you know, reaching out to us is going to then give you a barrage of 30 solar companies wanting to talk to you. But if somebody texts solar to 84503, that will get us in touch, or they'll get in touch with us, and we'll help them to understand what's out there, how it works, their property level concerns. I mean, the real three things that we looked at. We looked at individual, what are they trying to accomplish? What are they dealing with?
Yep.
Because right now, people are living more uncomfortably than they've ever lived in their own homes. People are suffering with temperatures in the summer that are greater than what they really want, suffering with temperatures in the winter that are colder than what they really want, because they don't want to or can't afford the amount of electricity that they need, right? So are you looking for more comfort? Are you looking for a better life inside your home? Property level concerns, and then how much energy are you using. Those three things are really what we're going to deep dive into initially, but we're very low key. We'll show you all the information, show you all of the proposals, find the best companies to work with. We've vetted these companies. How does an average homeowner know what company's a good one or a bad one, or know what might be jeopardized, the next one to go out of business?
Yeah.
This is what we live and breathe every day. So if somebody wants to do that, they can do that. And then another thing is, if somebody's just looking for more information, I've got my own YouTube channel, Graybeard Talks Solar. I've got about 25 videos on there. Great information. I talk about things like you're talking about, battery storage and outages and what's coming in California and stuff like that. So if somebody wants to check out the Graybeard Talks Solar YouTube channel, they'll find a lot of information there too.
Fantastic. I don't know why it's Graybeard. I don't know what the origin story of that name.
What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Gray beard? What?
In December, he plays Santa Claus. He goes around to the different communities.
I'm going to become the graybeard hippie Santa Claus.
You look like who was it? Odin.
Yeah.
Did you see Arnold Schwarzenegger is playing Santa Claus?
No.
You look a little bit like how he's trying to portray the character.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Like a jacked Santa.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, Sean.
Hey, Johnny. Thank you for the opportunity.